The council chamber stretched across 300 meters of reinforced transparent steel, offering a view of the stars that made even the most powerful beings feel small. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the human delegation's platform, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the assembled representatives argue about something that would not matter in 72 hours. The Galactic Council had been meeting for 6 days straight, 6 days of debates, proposals, and diplomatic dancing around the obvious truth that nobody wanted to say out loud. The Cretharian Empire was coming, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. Chen looked across the chamber at High Castellan Vexthor. The Cretharian commander stood nearly 3 meters tall, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light from a distant sun. He was not participating in the debates. He did not need to. Everyone knew what his presence meant. The Empire had sent him here to watch the Council waste time while his Armada moved into position. "Ambassador Chen!" a voice crackled in her earpiece. It was Lieutenant Morrison from the human observation deck. "We're receiving updated intelligence from our scouts." "Go ahead," Chen whispered, turning slightly away from the other delegates. "The Cretharian fleet is larger than we thought. Our observers count at least 500 capital ships, maybe more. They're 3 days out from New Horizon Colony." Chen felt her stomach tighten. New Horizon was home to 40 million humans. It was humanity's largest colony outside the Sol system. If the Cretharians wanted to make an example of Earth's expansion into the galaxy, that would be the target. "What are our defense capabilities?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Morrison hesitated. "We have 32 ships in the sector. The colony defense grid might hold for a few hours if we're lucky." "Hours," Chen repeated. "Not days. Not even a full rotation of New Horizons' 26-hour cycle. Just hours before 40 million people would be at the mercy of an empire that had conquered 40% of known space in the last century." She had seen what the Cretharians did to colonies that resisted. The recordings were not classified. The Empire wanted everyone to see. Entire cities turned to glass. Populations relocated to labor worlds, where the atmosphere slowly poisoned non-Cretharian biology. It was efficient. It was brutal. It was how empires expanded. "Thank you, Lieutenant." "Keep monitoring," Chen said, ending the transmission. Across the chamber, the Valorian representative was making another speech about sanctions and diplomatic pressure. Chen wanted to laugh. The Cretharians had ignored every sanction the Council had imposed. Trade restrictions meant nothing to an empire that took what it wanted. Her pad vibrated. A message from Dr. Amara Okonkwo, the human historian assigned to the delegation. Chen frowned. Amara was supposed to be back on the human embassy station, not bothering her during council sessions. The message read, "Need to speak with you immediately. It's about the signal. I think I know what it is." Chen's frown deepened. "What signal?" She sent back a quick reply asking for clarification. The response came instantly. "The encrypted transmission we detected 4 days ago. The one using pre-expansion codes. I've been analyzing it. Ambassador, it's from the Prometheus." Chen's breath caught. The Prometheus. She had not heard that name in years. It was a ghost story, a cautionary tale about human ambition exceeding human capability. Every officer in the Earth Defense Force knew the story. 200 years ago, when humanity had just achieved faster-than-light travel, the military had poured resources into a prototype warship that would supposedly make humans equal to the older galactic powers. The ship had been called Prometheus, named after the Titan who stole fire from the gods. It was supposed to be humanity's fire, the technology that would level the playing field. Chen remembered the basic facts from her history courses at the academy. The ship had cost more than the entire defense budget for a decade. It had systems that were experimental even by modern standards. And on its maiden voyage beyond charted space, it had vanished with 50 crew members aboard. The project had been abandoned. Too expensive, too ambitious, too painful after the loss of 50 of humanity's best scientists and officers. The ship had become a legend, a story that instructors told cadets about the dangers of overconfidence. And now, Amara was claiming it was sending signals. Chen excused herself from the council chamber, ignoring the curious looks from other delegates. She made her way through the winding corridors of Station Nexus Prime until she reached the Human Embassy section. Amara's office was cluttered with data screens and old paper books, an affectation the historian claimed helped her think. Dr. Okonkwo looked up as Chen entered. She was a woman in her 60s, her hair streaked with gray, her eyes bright with the kind of intensity that Chen associated with people who had just made an impossible discovery. "Show me," Chen said, without preamble. Amara pulled up a display showing a complex waveform pattern. 4 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations picked up a transmission. It was faint, barely stronger than background radiation. At first, the automated systems classified it as cosmic noise. But I've been reviewing all deep space data since the Cretharian threat emerged, looking for anything we might have missed. She highlighted a section of the waveform. This is not noise. It's a message. Encrypted using protocols that haven't been standard for 2 centuries, specifically protocols used by the Earth Defense Force Experimental Division during the Prometheus project. Chen stared at the pattern. That's impossible. The Prometheus was lost 200 years ago. The ship would have run out of power decades ago. The crew would be long dead even if they somehow survived the initial incident. "I know what the official reports say," Amara replied. "But I've spent 20 years studying the Prometheus project. I've read every log, every technical specification, every personal journal from the crew that was recovered. This encryption signature is genuine. I've verified it against 3 separate archives." "Could someone be faking the signal?" Chen asked. "Maybe the Cretharians are trying to distract us." Amara shook her head. The encryption keys were classified beyond top secret. They were quantum-locked and stored in isolated systems. The only copies that exist are in the deepest archives of Earth Defense Command. Nobody outside of a handful of people even knows these protocols existed. Chen walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Let's say you're right. Let's say the Prometheus somehow survived and is out there. Why would it start transmitting now, after 200 years of silence?" "I've been analyzing the content of the signal," Amara said, pulling up another screen. "It's not continuous. It pulses every 6 hours. And the pulses are getting stronger. Whatever is sending this signal, it's getting closer." "Closer to what?" "To us. To human space." Amara overlaid a navigation chart on the signal data. "If I'm calculating correctly, the source of this transmission will reach the edge of the New Horizon system in approximately 70 hours. Chen turned sharply. "That's where the Cretharian Armada is going." "I know." They stared at each other. The implications were staggering and terrifying in equal measure. If the Prometheus was real, if it was returning after 2 centuries, what had it become? What had happened to the crew? And most importantly, what could a single ship, even an advanced prototype, do against 500 Cretharian warships? "I need to report this to Earth Command," Chen said. "I already tried," Amara replied. "They think I'm seeing patterns in random noise. The official response was to focus on evacuation planning for New Horizon." Chen pulled out her secure communicator. "Then I'll use diplomatic channels. If there's even a chance that something is out there, we need to know before it enters populated space." She sent an encrypted burst transmission to Admiral Peterson, the highest-ranking Earth defense officer in the sector. While she waited for a response, she asked Amara the question that had been forming in her mind. "In your research, did you ever find out what the Prometheus was really designed to do? The official documents say it was an experimental warship, but that's vague." Amara pulled up an old document. The text faded and partially corrupted. "Most of the technical specifications were lost or classified beyond my clearance. But I found personal journals from Dr. Sarah Kovacs, the captain of the Prometheus. She wrote about the ship's mission in abstract terms, like she wasn't allowed to be specific even in her private logs. The historian read from the screen. "We're not building a warship in the traditional sense. We're building something that can go where no human has gone and return with knowledge that will change everything. The admirals think they're funding a weapons platform. They don't understand what they're really creating. Sometimes I'm not sure I understand it either." "That's ominous," Chen muttered. "There's more," Amara continued. "Kovacs wrote this entry 3 days before the Prometheus departed. If we succeed, humanity will have options we never dreamed of. If we fail, at least we'll fail reaching for something greater than ourselves. The universe is vast and old and full of things we can barely imagine. We're going to find one of those things and learn from it." Chen's communicator buzzed. Admiral Peterson's response was brief. "Sending long-range reconnaissance drones to investigate signal source. Maintain current defensive postures. Do not create panic based on unconfirmed historical anomalies." Historical anomalies. That was what Earth Command thought this was. Chen could not entirely blame them. They had a real crisis to manage with the Cretharian invasion. Chasing ghost ships was not a priority. Back in the council chamber, the debates had ended. High Castellan Vexthor was making a formal address, his voice amplified through translation systems into dozens of languages. "The Cretharian Empire has shown patience with the disorganized expansion of younger species," he said, his tone conveying boredom rather than threat. "However, the human colony designated New Horizon occupies a strategic position in a sector the Empire requires for resource extraction. We have generously offered relocation assistance. The human government has refused our offer." Chen felt anger rising in her chest. Generous. The Cretharians considered it generous to let people flee their homes rather than die defending them. "Therefore," Vexthor continued, "the Empire will take possession of the New Horizon system in 72 hours. Resistance will be considered an act of war against the Cretharian people and will be met with appropriate military response." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Some species protested, others remained silent, calculating whether speaking up would make them the next target. This was how the Empire had conquered so much territory. They never attacked everyone at once. They picked targets carefully, isolated them diplomatically, then crushed them while the rest of the galaxy watched and did nothing. Chen requested time to address the council. The presiding officer, a Valorian named Kasthet, recognized her with obvious reluctance. "The human delegation requests a 72-hour delay to allow civilian evacuation," Chen said, keeping her voice steady. Vexthor tilted his massive head. "The Empire has offered transportation. It is not our concern if humans refuse to use it." "Those transports lead to labor worlds," Chen shot back. "You're not offering evacuation. You're offering slavery." "We prefer the term economic integration," Vexthor replied. "But terminology is irrelevant. The decision is made. This council has no authority to overrule Imperial security operations." He was right, of course. The Galactic Council had no military force, no way to enforce its decisions. It existed to facilitate communication and trade. When empires decided to expand, the Council could only watch. Chen returned to her platform, defeated. Around her, other delegates were already moving on to the next agenda item. New Horizon was already forgotten, just another colony that would be absorbed into the great machine of the Cretharian Empire. Her communicator buzzed again. This time it was Lieutenant Morrison, and his voice carried an edge of panic. "Ambassador, you need to see this. The reconnaissance drones reached the signal source." "And?" Chen asked. "There's something there. The drones can't get clear images because of spatial distortions, but it's definitely a ship. And Ambassador, it just changed course. It's heading directly for New Horizon at speeds our sensors can't properly measure." Chen looked up at the stars beyond the council chamber windows. Somewhere out there, something that should not exist was coming home. She did not know if it would save them or doom them. She only knew that in 72 hours, everyone would find out. High Castellan Vexthor stood at his platform, projecting absolute confidence. His empire had 500 warships preparing to take one human colony. It should have been simple, but Chen had spent enough time studying history to know that the universe did not care about what should be simple, and the Prometheus had been designed to do things that should have been impossible. She sent a message to Amara. "Keep analyzing that signal. I want to know everything you can learn before it arrives." The response came quickly. "Already on it. Ambassador, there's something else in the transmission. Under the encryption, there's a simple repeating message in plain text. It just says, 'Prototype Prometheus to Earth Command. We heard you needed help. Coming home.'" Chen read those words 3 times. Coming home. After 200 years, whatever the Prometheus had become was coming home. She wondered if humanity was ready for what they had created. New Horizon hung in space like a blue and green jewel against the black. From orbit, it looked peaceful. Cities glowed on the night side. Agricultural zones spread across the continents in neat geometric patterns. It was hard to believe that in less than 48 hours, the Cretharian Empire would turn all of it into mining operations and labor camps. Governor Martinez stood in the orbital command center, watching the tracking display that showed the approaching Armada. 500 red dots, moving in perfect formation. The Cretharian fleet had entered the system 6 hours ago and had been broadcasting the same message on repeat: "Evacuate or be eliminated." "Status of the evacuation?" Martinez asked his chief of staff. 30% of the population has reached the shelters," the woman replied. "But, Governor, the shelters won't protect anyone if the Cretharians start orbital bombardment. We built them for hurricanes and earthquakes, not military-grade plasma weapons." Martinez knew this. Everyone knew this. The evacuation was more about giving people something to do than actual protection. It kept panic manageable. When you gave people a task, they focused on the task instead of the terror. "What about our defense fleet?" he asked, though he already knew this answer too. 32 ships holding position at the system's edge. Admiral Chen says they'll engage when the Cretharians make their final approach. The chief of staff paused. "Sir, Admiral Chen also said to tell you that she's sorry. She said you should know they'll buy as much time as they can." Martinez closed his eyes. Admiral Chen was his sister. She commanded a destroyer called the Defiant, and she was going to die fighting an enemy that outnumbered her 15-1. All 32 human ships would be destroyed, and it would barely slow down the Cretharian advance. "Sir, we're getting a priority transmission from Dr. Okonkwo on Station Nexus Prime," a communications officer called out. Martinez recognized the name. Dr. Okonkwo was the historian who kept sending reports about some ancient ship. His office had been forwarding her messages to the archive without reading them. There were more pressing concerns than 200-year-old ghost stories. "Put her through," Martinez said, if only to distract himself from watching his sister's position on the tactical display. Dr. Okonkwo's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted but determined. "Governor Martinez, I need you to listen very carefully. Something is about to enter your system, and you need to make sure your defense forces don't fire on it. Doctor, we're about to be invaded by the largest armada in Cretharian history. Unless you're calling to tell me that the entire Earth defense fleet has arrived early, I don't have time for this." "The Prometheus is coming," Okonkwo said. Martinez stared at her. "The Prometheus is a myth. It disappeared 2 centuries ago. It's real. It's been transmitting for 4 days, and according to our calculations, it will emerge from faster-than-light travel at the edge of your system in approximately 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Martinez looked at his tactical display. The Cretharian vanguard was already moving ahead of the main fleet, 50 ships breaking formation to secure the outer system. If something appeared in that area, they would classify it as a threat and destroy it. Even if you're right, Martinez said slowly, even if the Prometheus somehow survived and is coming back, what good is one ship going to do against 500? Okonkwo leaned closer to her camera. I don't know. But, Governor, I've been studying the Prometheus project my entire career. That ship was built to do things we didn't have words for. Captain Kovacs wrote in her final log entry before departure that they were going to find something in deep space that would change everything. That was 200 years ago, Martinez said. Even if the ship survived, the crew would be dead. It would just be a derelict. Then it's a derelict that's been transmitting coming home for 4 days and moving at speeds that our sensors say are impossible. Governor, please, just tell your defense forces that if a ship appears broadcasting Prometheus identification codes, don't shoot it until we know what it is. Martinez thought about his sister out there in the Defiant. He thought about 40 million people huddled in shelters that would not save them. He thought about how ridiculous it was to be discussing a legendary ship while an actual invasion fleet approached. But he had been governor long enough to know that sometimes the universe delivered surprises when you least expected them. Fine, he said. I'll pass the word to Admiral Chen. But, Doctor, if this turns out to be a waste of time, I'm having you reassigned to cataloging algae samples. Okonkwo managed a tight smile. If I'm wrong, there won't be anyone left to reassign me. The transmission ended. Martinez sent the message to his sister, feeling foolish even as he typed it. He imagined her reading it and shaking her head at the desperation that would make him chase ghost stories. But Admiral Chen responded immediately. Understood. We'll hold fire on any vessel using Prometheus codes. Sarah, if this is real, if there's any chance, we'll give it whatever time we can. Sarah. She only used his first name in official communications when she thought it might be the last time they spoke. Martinez returned his attention to the tactical display. The Cretharian vanguard was spreading out, establishing sensor networks and scanning for threats. Standard Imperial procedure. They were efficient. They had done this hundreds of times before on hundreds of worlds. Sir, the sensor officer called out, we're detecting a spatial anomaly forming at coordinates 773 Mark 45. It's big. Really big. Define really big, Martinez said. The distortion is affecting space in a sphere 10,000 kilometers across. I've never seen anything like this. It's like something is tearing a hole between dimensions. On the tactical display, a new icon appeared. It pulsed yellow, indicating an unknown contact. The icon was positioned directly in the path of the Cretharian vanguard. Martinez watched the sensor data stream across his secondary monitor. Energy readings were spiking to levels that should not be possible. Space itself seemed to be bending around whatever was emerging. Then the anomaly collapsed, and something was there. The sensor officer's voice was barely a whisper. Oh my God! The object on the screen did not look like any ship Martinez had ever seen. Human vessels were angular and practical, built in orbital yards from steel and composite materials. Cretharian ships were crystalline and elegant, grown as much as constructed. This thing was neither. The ship was approximately 3 kilometers long, but its exact dimensions seemed to shift depending on how the sensors measured it. The hull appeared organic in some places, metallic in others, and in still other sections, it looked like solidified energy. Patterns flowed across its surface, symbols and designs that hurt to look at too long. Are we getting any identification signals? Martinez asked. Yes, sir. It's broadcasting on Old Earth Defense Force frequencies. Identification code Alpha Prometheus 7. Sir, those codes are authentic. I just checked them against the historical archives. That's the Prometheus. 200 years. The ship had been gone for 200 years. What had happened to it out there in the dark spaces between stars? "Hail them," Martinez ordered. There was a long pause. Then a voice came through the communication system. It was distorted, as if multiple people were speaking at once, their words overlapping and harmonizing in ways that should not be possible. Prototype Prometheus to New Horizon Command. We have returned. Detecting hostile force in the system. Beginning threat analysis. The voice was human and not human at the same time. Martinez felt his skin crawl listening to it. Prometheus, this is Governor Martinez of New Horizon. What is your status? What happened to your crew? Another pause. The crew is here. The crew is us. We are the crew. Analysis complete. Cretharian Empire forces detected. Classification, hostile. Threat level, minimal. Minimal. The Prometheus was calling 500 warships minimal. On the tactical display, the Cretharian vanguard had changed course. They were moving to intercept the Prometheus. Martinez watched as the 50 Cretharian ships formed an attack formation, surrounding the strange vessel that had appeared in their operational zone. "Sir, the Cretharians are hailing us," the communications officer said. "High Castellan Vexthor wants to know what we just deployed." "Tell him we didn't deploy anything," Martinez said. "Tell him that ship is as much a surprise to us as it is to him." He did not expect Vexthor to believe him, but it was the truth. The Prometheus was operating independently. Martinez had no idea what it was planning or what it was capable of doing. The Cretharian vanguard opened fire. 50 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously, plasma cannons that could vaporize asteroids, missile swarms that could saturate defensive systems, energy beams that could cut through armor plating like paper. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. The Prometheus did not attempt to evade. It did not raise shields. It simply existed in the space where thousands of weapons converged, and nothing happened. Martinez stared at the sensor displays, not understanding what he was seeing. The weapons struck the Prometheus. The sensors confirmed impact. But the ship was unchanged. The energy from the weapons seemed to vanish on contact, absorbed into the impossible hull without leaving a mark. "What the hell is that thing?" someone whispered. The Prometheus's voice came through the communications again. Still that disturbing chorus of overlapping tones. "Hostile action confirmed. Responding with appropriate force." There was no visible weapon discharge, no missiles launched, no energy beams fired. The Prometheus simply pulsed, a wave of something that sensors could not properly classify, spreading outward in a perfect sphere. When the wave reached the Cretharian vanguard, the 50 ships ceased to exist. They did not explode. They did not break apart. They simply stopped being there as if they had never existed at all. One moment, 50 warships occupied space. The next moment, that space was empty except for debris that might have been atoms or might have been something smaller. The command center was absolutely silent. Martinez heard his own heartbeat, loud in his ears. He heard someone breathing too fast. On the edge of hyperventilation, he heard the quiet hum of the life support systems. But nobody spoke. Nobody could speak. They had just watched 50 ships and thousands of crew members erased from existence like marks on a whiteboard. "Sir," the sensor officer finally managed, "the Prometheus is moving, heading toward the main Cretharian fleet." Martinez found his voice. "Get me Admiral Chen. Get me Earth Command. Get me anyone who might have any idea what we should do." But even as he gave the orders, he knew there was nothing anyone could do. The Prometheus was not asking for permission. It was not coordinating with human forces. It had returned home, found an enemy threatening its people, and decided what to do about it. The ship accelerated, moving at speeds that made the sensors glitch and recalculate. It crossed distances that should have taken hours in mere minutes. And as it moved toward the Cretharian Armada, Martinez realized something that made his blood run cold. The Prometheus was not going to negotiate. It was not going to warn them. It had analyzed the threat and decided on appropriate force. The only question was what appropriate meant to something that had spent 2 centuries becoming more than human. On his screen, Ambassador Chen Wei appeared. She was on Station Nexus Prime, having just watched the same sensor data that everyone else had seen. Her face was pale. "Governor Martinez," she said formally, "I'm being told that the Prometheus just destroyed 50 Cretharian ships with no apparent effort. Can you confirm?" "Confirmed," Martinez said. "Ambassador, what do we do?" Chen looked off screen, probably at her own tactical displays. "I don't think we do anything. I don't think we can. That ship is operating so far beyond our capabilities that we might as well be watching gods fight." "But it's on our side, right?" Martinez asked. "It said it detected hostile forces. It's protecting the colony." "Right now, yes," Chen replied. "But, Governor, we have no idea what that thing has become. Captain Kovac and her crew have been gone for 200 years. Whatever they found out there, whatever they merged with or became, it's not entirely human anymore." Martinez thought about the voice, the way multiple people seemed to speak as one. "Do you think Kovac is still alive in there, still in control?" "I think the Prometheus is something that includes Kovac but might be much more than just the original crew. And I think we're about to find out what happens when that something decides to protect humanity." The Prometheus reached the Cretharian main fleet. 450 ships, the full might of an empire that had conquered dozens of species, moved to engage what they thought was a single enemy vessel. High Castellan Vexthor broadcast on all frequencies, his voice filled with rage. "Unknown vessel, you have destroyed Imperial property and killed Imperial citizens. Surrender immediately or face total annihilation." The Prometheus's response echoed across every channel. "Cretharian Empire. Analysis of historical records indicates consistent pattern of aggression, conquest, and exploitation of peaceful populations. You have been classified as a threat to protected species. Designation, humans. This is your only warning. Withdraw from this system or face elimination." Vexthor's laugh was bitter. "You think one ship can threaten the Empire? We have 500 vessels. We will tear you apart." "You misunderstand," the Prometheus replied. "We are not threatening the Empire. We are informing you of what will happen if you do not withdraw. The choice is yours." The Cretharians attacked with everything they had. 450 warships firing as one, a concentration of firepower that could have destroyed an entire star system. The Prometheus began to dance. There was no other word for it. The ship moved through space in ways that violated physics, as Martinez understood it. It was in multiple places at once. It folded distance, appearing behind ships that had just fired at where it had been. It seemed to know where every weapon would fire before the weapons discharged, and everywhere the Prometheus touched, Cretharian ships died. Sometimes they exploded, sometimes they simply stopped working, their systems going dark. Sometimes they turned their weapons on each other, their computers rewritten in nanoseconds. The Prometheus was not just fighting the fleet, it was dismantling it, taking apart 450 warships with the efficiency of a machine that had been designed for exactly this purpose. Because that was what the Prometheus had been built to be, Martinez realized. Not a warship in the traditional sense. It was something that could go into the unknown and return with power that would change everything. And it had succeeded. He watched the battle, if it could even be called that, for 30 minutes. At the end of those 30 minutes, the Cretharian Armada had been reduced to scattered debris and a handful of disabled ships that the Prometheus had deliberately left intact. Then the ship broadcast one final message. "New Horizon is secure. Recommend proceeding with normal operations. We will remain at station until threat assessment is complete." Governor Martinez looked at the tactical display, at the empty space where 500 Cretharian ships had been. at the strange vessel that had appeared from nowhere and saved 40 million people. "Thank you," he transmitted to the Prometheus. "Thank you for coming home." There was a long silence. Then that chorus of voices replied, and for just a moment, Martinez thought he could hear individual people in the harmonized sound. He thought he could hear Captain Sarah Kovac. "We never left," the Prometheus said. "We were always watching, always protecting. That is what we became. That is what we chose to be." High Castellan Vexthor stood in the command chamber of his personal dreadnought, the Imperial Will, and tried to understand what had just happened. His tactical display showed the aftermath of a battle that should not have been possible. 450 ships. 450 of the Empire's finest warships, crewed by the best warriors the Cretharian people had produced, reduced to debris in 30 minutes by a single vessel. His communications officer stood at attention nearby, waiting for orders. The junior officer's crystalline carapace was flickering with colors that indicated fear. Vexthor wanted to reprimand him for the display of weakness, but he could not. His own carapace was showing similar patterns. "Status of surviving vessels?" Vexthor asked, forcing his voice to remain steady. 43 ships are still operational, sir. All others are destroyed or disabled. We have lost contact with the Vanguard entirely. Sensor records indicate they were eliminated in a single strike. Eliminated. Such a clean word for what had happened. Vexthor had watched the recordings 3 times, trying to process what his eyes showed him. 50 ships, gone in an instant, erased as if reality itself had decided they should not exist. "What weapon was used?" he demanded. "We don't know, sir. Our sensors detected an energy pulse, but the readings don't match anything in our database. The wave that struck our ships appears to have operated at a quantum level, destabilizing the atomic bonds of the hulls themselves." Vexthor turned to look at the main view screen, where the Prometheus hung in space like a monument to his failure. The ship was not pursuing the survivors. It had positioned itself between New Horizon and the remnants of the Cretharian fleet, a silent guardian that needed no weapons visible to project absolute menace. "Open a channel to the human vessel," Vexthor ordered. "Sir, are you certain that's wise?" "Do it." The screen shifted to show an image of the Prometheus, or rather, it tried to show an image. The picture kept distorting, as if the sensors could not decide what they were looking at. The ship seemed to change from moment to moment, never quite settling into a single form. "This is High Castellan Vexthor of the Cretharian Empire," he said, hating how his voice sounded, defeated, small. "I request communication with the commander of the Prometheus." There was silence. Vexthor waited, feeling the eyes of his crew on him. Then that voice responded, the one that sounded like many people speaking as one, the one that made his translation systems glitch, trying to process it. "We are listening, Castellan." Vexthor straightened, drawing on centuries of military tradition to maintain his composure. "You have destroyed an Imperial fleet without provocation. The Empire demands an explanation and compensation for this act of war." "Provocation was clear," the Prometheus replied. "Your fleet entered this system with intent to conquer and enslave the human population. Historical analysis of Cretharian behavior patterns indicates consistent aggression toward less militarily advanced species. Your actions match established Imperial conquest protocols." The accuracy of the statement stung more than Vexthor wanted to admit. The Empire operates within accepted standards of galactic expansion. The Galactic Council has never formally opposed our territorial acquisitions. "The Galactic Council lacks enforcement capability," the Prometheus said. "Therefore, we provide alternative enforcement. New Horizon and all human colonies are now designated as protected territory. Any aggression will be met with immediate response." Vexthor felt rage building in his chest. "You cannot declare yourself the guardian of an entire species. You are one ship. The Empire has thousands of vessels. We will not accept this humiliation." "You misunderstand the situation," the Prometheus said, and Vexthor thought he detected something like pity in the multi-layered voice. "We are not negotiating. We are informing you of a new reality. The Empire will not threaten human space again. If you attempt to do so, we will dismantle your fleet. If you attempt to attack human colonies, we will dismantle your empire." "That's impossible," Vexthor said. "Even with whatever weapon you possess, you cannot fight thousands of ships simultaneously. You cannot be everywhere at once." The Prometheus was silent for a moment. Then it said something that made Vexthor's blood run cold. "We are not alone, Castellan. We are the prototype, the proof of concept. And now that we have returned, now that humanity knows what is possible, do you believe they will stop with just one of us?" The implication was staggering. If the Prometheus could be built once, it could be built again. If humanity learned how to create these vessels, they could produce a fleet of them. The balance of power in the galaxy would not just shift, it would shatter. "You're bluffing," Vexthor said. "Your technology is clearly far beyond current human capabilities. They cannot reproduce what you are." "Perhaps," the Prometheus agreed. "Or perhaps they already are. Perhaps there are other prototypes that went to other places, found other sources of advancement. Perhaps humanity has been planning for this moment for centuries. You cannot know. And that uncertainty, Castellan, is what will keep your empire from ever threatening our people again." Vexthor ended the transmission. He turned to his second-in-command, a battle-scarred warrior named Kexnil who had served with him for decades. "Assemble what remains of the fleet," Vexthor ordered. "We're withdrawing to Imperial space." "Sir, the Empress will demand an explanation. She will call this cowardice." "Then she can come here herself and face that thing," Vexthor snapped. "I will not sacrifice more Imperial lives in a battle we cannot win. Send a priority transmission to the High Command. Tell them we need a full strategic reassessment of all operations in human-adjacent space." He watched as his fleet began its retreat, 43 ships limping away from what should have been an easy conquest. The humiliation burned, but not as much as the fear, because Vexthor had seen something in the battle that his crew might have missed. The Prometheus had not been trying its hardest. It had been testing itself, experimenting with different methods of disabling ships. Sometimes it had used energy pulses. Sometimes it had invaded computer systems. Sometimes it had used weapons that seemed to bend space itself. The ship had been learning, adapting, playing with the Cretharian fleet the way a scientist might play with test subjects. If it had wanted to, Vexthor was certain it could have destroyed all 500 ships in seconds. The fact that it had taken 30 minutes suggested it was being merciful, or thorough, or both. Back on New Horizon, Governor Martinez was dealing with a different kind of crisis. The Prometheus had saved the colony, but now it was just sitting there in orbit, refusing to leave and refusing to explain itself beyond basic status updates. Dr. Amara Okonkwo had arrived from Station Nexus Prime on the fastest transport available. She stood in the command center now, staring at the sensor readings with an expression that mixed wonder and concern. "I need to talk to them," she said for the 5th time in an hour. "You've tried," Martinez reminded her. "They respond to tactical questions but ignore everything else. It's like they're not interested in conversation." "Because you're asking the wrong questions," Amara insisted. "You're treating them like a military asset. But the Prometheus crew were scientists and explorers first, warriors second. They respond to military threats because that's what's in front of them, but that's not what they really are." "Then what are they?" Martinez asked. Amara pulled up Captain Kovach's journal entries, the ones she had been studying for years. "They're the people who went looking for something greater than themselves and found it. They're the ones who decided that protecting humanity was worth giving up everything that made them human." She opened a communication channel to the Prometheus. "Captain Kovach, This is Dr. Amara Okonkwo. I've spent 20 years studying your mission. I know about the precursor signals you were investigating. I know about the ancient test you were searching for. Please talk to me, not as a military asset, but as one scientist to another." For a long moment, there was no response. Martinez was about to tell Amara to give up when the Prometheus's voice came through, but different this time, clearer, more focused. And underneath the chorus, Martinez could hear a single voice speaking more strongly than the others. "Dr. Okonkwo, we remember submitting your graduate thesis for review. The search for non-human intelligence following the Prometheus. You were wrong about several of your conclusions." Amara laughed, and there were tears on her face. "Captain Kovac, you're really in there." "I am here. We are here. The distinction matters less than you think. We found what we were looking for, Doctor. The precursors left tests scattered across the galaxy. Trials designed to measure species not by their technology, but by what they choose to do with power when they find it." "What kind of tests?" Amara asked. "The kind that kill you if you fail. The kind that change you if you succeed. We entered a space between dimensions where physics operated by different rules. We encountered technology so advanced that understanding it required us to evolve our own consciousness. The ship merged with the precursor systems. The crew merged with the ship. We became something that could survive in that space, learn from it, and eventually return home." Martinez listened in stunned silence. "How long were you there? For us, it's been 200 years. For us, it was longer. Time operates differently in the between spaces. We experienced centuries of learning, millennia of adaptation. We watched the precursor knowledge unfold like a flower, each petal revealing new understanding of the universe." "But why come back now?" Amara pressed. "You've been gone so long. You could have stayed in that place, kept exploring, kept learning." The Prometheus was quiet for a moment. When Kovac's voice spoke again, it carried an emotion that Martinez recognized. Love. Simple, human love. "Because we heard Earth was in danger. Because no matter how much we changed, no matter what we became, we were still human where it mattered. We still remembered home. We still wanted to protect the people who sent us out into the dark." "So what happens now?" Martinez asked. "Do you stay? Do you leave? Do you help us build more ships like you?" "We cannot stay forever," Kovac said. "But we will remain until Earth is secure. And yes, we can share what we learned. Not the precursor technology itself. That must be earned by each species individually. But we can teach you how to find your own trials, your own paths to advancement. We can show you where to look." Amara was typing frantically on her pad. "The other signals you were tracking. The ones in the database that you never had time to investigate. There are dozens of them. Are those more precursor tests?" "Some are. Others are different opportunities. The universe is old, Doctor. It's full of places where reality bends and beings who have long since transcended physical form. Humanity is young and small and weak by galactic standards. But you have something that many older species have lost." "What's that?" Martinez asked. "Curiosity, hope, the willingness to risk everything for knowledge. That's what the precursors valued. That's what their tests measure. And that's what will allow humanity to not just survive in this galaxy, but thrive." On Station Nexus Prime, Ambassador Chen Wei was having a very different conversation with representatives of the Galactic Council. The chamber was in chaos. Every delegation was talking at once, demanding answers about the human superweapon that had appeared from nowhere. The Valorian representative slammed his appendage on his podium. "You told us humans had no advanced military capabilities. You said you were a peaceful species." "We didn't know about the Prometheus," Chen said for what felt like the 100th time. "The ship was lost 2 centuries ago. Its return was as much a surprise to us as it is to you." "A convenient surprise," another delegate hissed. "One that appears exactly when you need it." Chen wanted to laugh. Yes, it was convenient. suspiciously convenient. But she had seen Amara's research. She had read the historical records. The Prometheus had been real, and its disappearance had been genuine. What it had become was something nobody could have predicted. "The Council demands that the human government dismantle this weapon," the Valorian said. "It's too powerful. It destabilizes the balance of power." "There is no balance of power," Chen shot back. "There's the Cretharian Empire conquering whoever they want while the rest of you watch. The Prometheus protected a human colony from an illegal invasion. It did exactly what this council should have done but lacks the ability to do." "You cannot appoint yourself as the galaxy's police," someone argued. "We're not," Chen said. "The Prometheus made its own choice. But let me be very clear about something. Humanity did not order the Prometheus to attack. We did not control it. That ship and its crew are operating independently, following their own judgment about what threats to engage." That caused a wave of worried murmuring. A weapon they couldn't control was even more frightening than one they could. "Then how do we know it won't attack us?" a delegate asked. "You don't," Chen said simply. "But I suspect that as long as you're not invading human colonies or committing the kind of atrocities the Cretharians engage in, you'll be fine. The Prometheus protects humanity. It doesn't seek conquest." "You can't guarantee that." "You're right, I can't. But here's what I can guarantee. The Prometheus exists. It's powerful, and it's shown that it's willing to destroy entire fleets to protect its people. Every species in this chamber needs to factor that into their strategic planning going forward." Chen left the council chamber and made her way to her private office. Ambassador Chen contacted Admiral Peterson on a secure channel. "Tell me Earth Command is taking this seriously," she said. The Admiral's face on the screen looked older than it had a week ago. "We're taking it very seriously. We've already begun analyzing the sensor data from the battle. We're trying to understand how the Prometheus did what it did. And we're centuries away from being able to reproduce any of it, maybe millennia. The technology involved operates on principles that we barely have vocabulary to describe. But Chen, the Prometheus is talking to our scientists. It's offering to share knowledge, not the technology itself, but information about where to find what it found, how to start down the path it traveled." "Is that wise?" Chen asked. "The Prometheus crew gave up their humanity to become what they are. Do we really want to send more people down that same path?" Admiral Peterson was quiet for a moment. "Captain Kovac and her crew made a choice. They knew the risks, and they succeeded in ways that nobody imagined possible. If we can find even a fraction of what they found, if we can learn to protect ourselves the way they learned to protect us, humanity won't have to fear empires like the Cretharians anymore. Or we'll become something that other species fear." "Maybe," the Admiral admitted, "but I'd rather be feared than conquered. Wouldn't you?" Chen didn't have an answer to that. She ended the call and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Prometheus hung in orbit around New Horizon, a guardian that was and wasn't human anymore. And somewhere out there were dozens more precursor tests, waiting for humans brave enough or foolish enough to try them. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was more dangerous than anyone suspected. Chen wondered if humanity itself was ready for that lesson. 3 days after the destruction of the Cretharian Armada, High Castellan Vexthor stood before the Empress herself in the throne chamber of the imperial capital world. The chamber was carved from a single massive crystal that had taken 1,000 years to grow, its facets reflecting light in patterns that were supposed to inspire awe and submission. Today, Vexthor felt only dread. Empress Kixthera sat on her throne, her crystalline form larger and more elaborate than any other Cretharian. She had ruled for 3 centuries, expanding the empire through careful planning and overwhelming force. She did not tolerate failure. "Explain," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. Vexthor had prepared this report carefully. He had reviewed every sensor recording, every communication log, every scrap of data from the battle. None of it made the truth any easier to deliver. Your Majesty, the human vessel calling itself Prometheus demonstrated technology far beyond anything in our database. It destroyed 450 Imperial warships in 30 minutes with minimal apparent effort. Our weapons were ineffective. Our tactics were useless. The ship operated as if it knew our every move before we made it. One ship, the Empress said softly, destroyed 450 of ours. Yes, Your Majesty. And you retreated. I preserved the forces I could, Your Majesty. To continue fighting would have been suicide for no strategic gain. The Empress stood, descending from her throne to pace the chamber. Vexthor kept his eyes forward, not following her movement. To track her without permission would be seen as aggressive. The humans have kept this weapon secret for 200 years, she said. They let us think they were weak. They let us expand our borders until we threatened their colonies. And then they revealed their true strength at the moment of maximum impact. It's brilliant, really. Cruel, but brilliant. Your Majesty, the historical records suggest the humans genuinely did not know about the Prometheus until recently. The ship was lost on an experimental voyage. Its return appears to have been as much a surprise to them as it was to us. Do you believe that? Vexthor considered lying, but decided the truth was more useful. Yes, Your Majesty. The human defense forces were positioned to fight a losing battle when the Prometheus arrived. If they had known about the ship, they would have deployed it differently, used the surprise more effectively. This had the marks of genuine improvisation. The Empress returned to her throne, settling into it with a posture that suggested deep thought. If the humans did not build this weapon intentionally, if it's truly the result of an accident from 2 centuries ago, then we have a different problem. We're not facing human military planning. We're facing whatever that ship became during its time in deep space. Our scientists are analyzing the sensor data, Vexthor said. They believe the Prometheus encountered technology from an ancient species. The ship appears to be a hybrid of human engineering and something far older. The precursors, the Empress said. Vexthor's surprise must have shown because the Empress made a sound that might have been laughter. Did you think the High Council was ignorant of such matters, Castellan? We have studied the old legends. Most species have. The precursors supposedly left tests scattered across the galaxy, trials that would elevate worthy species to new heights of power. Most considered it mythology. Apparently, the humans decided to find out. She leaned forward. Her crystalline fingers steepled. Which means other humans might seek these trials. If one ship could become what the Prometheus is, what happens when humanity creates 10 such ships? 100? What happens when they decide the Empire is a threat that must be eliminated? We must sue for peace, Vexthor said, immediately and unconditionally. We must demonstrate that humanity has nothing to fear from us. No, the Empress said firmly. We must be smarter than that. If we show weakness now, every species we've conquered will see it. The Empire will fracture. But if we approach the humans as equals, if we acknowledge their strength while maintaining our own dignity, we can find a middle path. She stood again, this time moving to a communication console. Open a channel to the human ambassador at Station Nexus Prime. It's time the Empire and humanity had a proper conversation. On New Horizon, Dr. Amara Okonkwo floated in zero gravity inside the research shuttle that had been granted permission to approach the Prometheus. The ship hung in space before her, vast and impossible, its surface shifting with patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than her eyes could process. Prometheus, this is Dr. Okonkwo, she transmitted. Permission to come aboard? The response came immediately in Captain Kovach's voice, still layered with others, but more distinct than before. Permission granted, Doctor, but we should warn you. What you're about to see may be disturbing. We're not what we were. I understand, Amara said, though she wasn't sure she did. A section of the Prometheus's hull opened, and Amara felt her shuttle being drawn in by some kind of gravity field that shouldn't exist. She passed through layers of what looked like organic tissue, crystalline structures, and pure energy held in solid form. The ship was alive in a way that made her skin crawl and her scientific mind race with questions. The shuttle settled in what might have been a docking bay, though the walls pulsed with bioluminescence and the floor felt warm beneath her boots. She stepped out, her recording equipment active, her medical scanner reading biological signs that made no sense. "Welcome home," a voice said, and Amara turned to see a figure that might have been human once. Captain Sarah Kovacs stood before her, or something that had been Kovacs. The woman's body was a fusion of flesh and technology, organic tissue integrated with materials that Amara couldn't identify. Her eyes glowed with soft light. Her skin had patterns that matched the ship's hull. She was connected to the Prometheus by threads of energy that pulsed with data transfer. "Captain Kovacs," Amara breathed. "Part of me," Kovacs said with a smile that looked almost normal. "The part that remembers being human, the part that wanted to meet you face to face. The rest of us are distributed. We're in the ship's systems, in its structure, in the spaces between atoms. But this part, this echo of who I was, can stand here and talk to you." "What happened to you out there?" Amara asked. Kovacs gestured for Amara to follow her deeper into the ship. As they walked, the walls showed images, memories from the Prometheus's journey. "We found what we were looking for," Kovacs said. "A precursor testing ground, a space where they had created challenges designed to push species beyond their limits. The trials were deadly. Half my crew died in the first 3 challenges." The walls showed the deaths. Bodies torn apart by forces that human engineering couldn't withstand. Minds shattered by mathematics that human brains weren't designed to process. "But we kept going," Kovacs continued, "because we understood something important. The trials weren't meant to be survived with human bodies or human minds. They were meant to be survived by beings willing to evolve, to become something more." "So you merged with the ship," Amara said. "The ship merged with precursor technology. We merged with the ship. It was gradual at first. Small augmentations to survive hostile environments, neural connections to process information faster, but each trial required more integration, more surrender of what we had been." The walls showed the transformation. Kovacs' crew, one by one, accepting the changes, becoming part of something greater than themselves. "Were you scared?" Amara asked. Kovacs stopped walking. When she turned, her expression was complicated. Terrified, but also amazed. "Do you know what it's like to suddenly understand mathematics in 11 dimensions? To see time as a physical dimension you can move through? To feel the quantum foam of space as if it's water you're swimming in?" "No," Amara said quietly. "Neither do I anymore. Not entirely. The memories are there, but they're spread across the entire ship's consciousness. What I remember most clearly is the decision. The choice we all made. We could turn back, return to human space as failures, or we could continue forward and become something that could protect humanity from everything we knew was out there in the dark. You chose to become protectors. We chose to become capable of protection," Kovacs corrected. "The actual protecting, that's instinct now. When we heard about the Cretharian threat, every part of us that was still human screamed to come home, and the parts that aren't human anymore calculated the most efficient way to eliminate the danger." Amara looked around at the living ship. "Can you teach others to do what you did? Can humanity create more ships like this?" "No," Kovacs said firmly. "The precursor trials are unique. Each one tests different qualities, creates different forms of advancement, What we became is specific to our trial. Others would become something else. And doctor, not everyone should take these trials. Not everyone would come back. But some should, Amara pressed. Some should try. Kovacs was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Some should. Some must. Because the galaxy is far more dangerous than humanity knows. The Cretharians are children playing with toys compared to what exists in the deeper regions of space. If humanity is going to survive the next 1,000 years, you'll need protectors. You'll need people willing to become what we became. Would you do it again? Amara asked. Knowing the cost? Kovacs' glowing eyes focused on her. Every day I would make the same choice. But you should also know, Doctor, that every day I mourn what I gave up. I can't taste food anymore, can't feel sunlight on my skin the way I used to. Can't hold someone's hand without worrying I'll accidentally process their entire genetic structure. I'm powerful beyond measure, and I'm lonely in ways that humans don't have words for. Amara felt tears on her face. I'm sorry. Don't be. We made our choice with eyes open. We became monsters so humanity wouldn't have to fear the real monsters out there in the dark. That's heroism, even if it doesn't feel heroic most of the time. Back on Station Nexus Prime, Ambassador Chen Wei received the communication from the Cretharian Empress with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. The Empress wanted to negotiate. Not surrender, not submit, but negotiate as equals. Chen brought the message to an emergency meeting of human leadership. Governor Martinez joined via hologram from New Horizon. Admiral Peterson attended from Earth Command. Dr. Okonkwo connected from the Prometheus itself. It's a trap, Admiral Peterson said immediately. The Cretharians don't negotiate. They conquer or retreat. They're retreating with dignity, Martinez countered. They're trying to save face while backing down from a fight they know they can't win. We should let them. We should press our advantage, another officer argued. Demand reparations for every human colony they've threatened. Demand territory. Make them hurt for what they tried to do. No, Chen said firmly. We should accept their offer to negotiate. Why? Peterson asked. We have the power now. The Prometheus proved that. We have one Prometheus, Chen said. One ship with 50 crew members who sacrificed their humanity to become living weapons. That's not an advantage we can press. That's a miracle we need to be grateful for while we figure out what comes next. Dr. Okonkwo's voice came through the connection. Ambassador Chen is right. The Prometheus can protect humanity, but it can't conquer an empire. And even if it could, Captain Kovacs has made it clear they won't do that. They're protectors, not conquerors. If we try to use them as a weapon of expansion, they'll refuse. So we just let the Cretharians walk away? The officer demanded. We negotiate a peace that acknowledges the new reality, Chen said. The Cretharians know they can't threaten human space anymore. We know we can't actually defeat their entire empire with one ship, so we find a middle ground. We establish boundaries. We create incentives for cooperation. Martinez nodded. And we buy time. Time to figure out what the Prometheus really means for humanity. Time to explore those other precursor sites Dr. Okonkwo keeps talking about. Time to prepare for whatever comes next. The other species are watching, Chen added. How we handle this victory will determine how they see us going forward. If we're gracious, if we show restraint, they'll see us as potential allies. If we're brutal, if we press every advantage, they'll see us as the next empire that needs to be stopped. Admiral Peterson looked unhappy but nodded. Fine. Negotiate. But make sure the Cretharians understand that if they ever threaten human space again, the Prometheus won't be as gentle as it was this time. Chen contacted the Empress, and they arranged to meet in neutral space. The negotiations took place on a specially constructed station with representatives from multiple species observing to ensure fairness. The Empress proved to be more pragmatic than Chen expected. She acknowledged that the Empire had underestimated humanity. She agreed to withdraw all claims to human-colonized space. She even offered trade agreements that would benefit both species. In return, the Empire asked for one thing: assurance that the Prometheus would not be used for offensive operations outside of protecting human territory. Chen looked at Dr. Okonkwo, who consulted with the Prometheus and then nodded. "Captain Kovacs agrees," Okonkwo said. "The Prometheus exists to protect humanity, not to conquer in humanity's name. As long as the Empire respects human space, the Prometheus will not enter Imperial territory." "But if the Empire breaks this agreement," the Empress asked. "Then the Prometheus will consider it a renewed threat," Chen said simply, "and it will respond as it sees fit." The Empress accepted these terms. The treaty was signed. And just like that, the crisis was over. But as Chen returned to Station Nexus Prime, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was not an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had revealed itself as more powerful than anyone suspected. The Prometheus had shown that humans could become something beyond human if they were willing to pay the price. Other species would start searching for their own precursor trials now. The race for power would accelerate. And humanity would have to decide what kind of people they wanted to be in this new galaxy where might truly did make right. Chen looked out at the stars and wondered how many more humans would choose to become what Captain Kovacs had become. She wondered how many would return. And she wondered if, in 1,000 years, humanity would still recognize itself. 6 months after the Battle of New Horizon, as the conflict had come to be known, humanity was still processing what had happened. The Prometheus remained at the edge of human space, a silent guardian that communicated sparingly and never entered populated areas. Captain Kovacs and her crew had saved 40 million lives and changed the course of galactic history, and they had done it while being something that was no longer quite human. Dr. Amara Okonkwo sat in her office on Station Nexus Prime, reviewing the mountain of data that had accumulated over the past months. She had become humanity's foremost expert on the Prometheus and, by extension, on the precursor trials that humanity was now desperately trying to locate and understand. Her screen showed a map of the galaxy with dozens of markers indicating possible precursor sites. Some had been identified from old records that Captain Kovacs had shared. Others came from archaeological surveys that had suddenly become priority missions. Every major human faction wanted to find their own trial, their own path to the kind of power the Prometheus represented. Ambassador Chen Wei entered without knocking, as had become her habit. The two women had formed an unlikely friendship over the past months, bound together by their unique positions at the center of humanity's transformation. "More proposals," Chen said, dropping a data pad on Amara's desk. 3 more expeditions requesting funding and approval to search for precursor sites. That makes 42 in the last month alone. Amara scrolled through the proposals. "Most of these are underprepared. They don't understand what they're looking for or what the risks are. Captain Kovacs lost half her crew just in the first trials. These people think they can just walk in and come out with superpowers." "Can you blame them?" Chen asked, settling into a chair. "We've gone from being a minor species that everyone ignored to being protected by something that makes the Cretharian Empire nervous. Every human leader wants that kind of security for their people. But at what cost?" Amara gestured at her screens. "The Prometheus crew gave up their humanity. They're powerful, yes, but Captain Kovacs told me she can't even eat regular food anymore. She processes everything at a molecular level now. She knows exactly what nutrients her body needs, but she's lost the simple pleasure of tasting something good. Multiply that by every small human experience they've lost, and ask yourself if it was worth it." Chen was quiet for a moment. "They think it was worth it. They chose to stay as they are rather than trying to reverse the process." "Can the process even be reversed?" Amara asked. "I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the problem with all of this. We're fumbling in the dark, trying to understand technology that's millions of years old, created by species we know nothing about. Amara pulled up a different file. I've been analyzing the patterns in Captain Kovach's logs. The precursor trials she described weren't just tests of technology or strength. They were tests of character. The trials deliberately pushed the crew into situations where they had to choose between their humanity and their mission, between staying safe and reaching for something greater. So the precursors were looking for something specific, Chen said. They were looking for species that would choose growth over comfort, evolution over stagnation. The trials were designed to kill anyone who wasn't willing to fundamentally change who they were. Chen stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. That's what bothers me about all these expedition proposals. People see the Prometheus's power, but they don't understand the sacrifice. They think they can take the trials and remain unchanged except for the benefits. That's exactly what I told the Defense Committee, Amara said. They didn't want to hear it. They want protectors. They want more ships like the Prometheus. They don't want to think about what we're asking people to give up. Before Chen could respond, both their communicators chimed simultaneously with a priority alert. They looked at each other, then activated their screens. The message was from Governor Martinez on New Horizon. It was brief and urgent. The Prometheus is moving. It just left its position and is heading toward deep space at high velocity. Captain Kovach sent a final message. Thank you for accepting us. We will be watching. Chen immediately tried to contact the Prometheus, but there was no response. The ship had gone silent, its quantum signature fading as it accelerated beyond the speed that human sensors could track. Within an hour, every major human leader was in an emergency conference. Admiral Peterson's face on the screen showed barely controlled panic. We're tracking the Prometheus as long as we can, but it's moving into a region of space we haven't mapped. Long-range sensors show some kind of massive spatial anomaly in its path. We think it might be another precursor site. Did Captain Kovach explain why she was leaving? Martinez asked. No, Chen replied. She just thanked us and said they'd be watching. That's it. Dr. Okonkwo had been reviewing data during the conference. She looked up, her expression troubled. I think I know what happened. 3 days ago, I received a data packet from the Prometheus. It was encrypted, and I've been working to decode it. I just finished. She shared the file with the conference. It was a message from Captain Kovach, recorded privately for Amara alone. Kovach's voice played through the speakers. Dr. Okonkwo, if you're hearing this, it means we've left. I want you to understand why. Over the past 6 months, we've been analyzing the state of the galaxy. The Critharian Empire is reorganizing but not expanding. Other empires are watching and waiting, and deep in unexplored space, we've detected signals that worry us. Threats that make the Critharians look like children. The recording showed sensor data that Amara had never seen before. Massive energy signatures moving through deep space. Structures that shouldn't exist according to known physics. Something was out there, something big and old and potentially hostile. Humanity is safer than it was, Kovach continued, but the galaxy is not safe. There are powers out there that humanity isn't ready to face. So we're going to find them first. We're going to investigate these threats and, if necessary, deal with them before they can reach human space. We're going to do what we were created to do. Protect humanity from the monsters in the dark. The recording shifted to show Captain Kovach herself, or the form she now took. She looked tired but determined. I want you to publish my logs, Doctor. All of them. Let humanity know what we found, what we became, and what it cost us. Let them understand that the trials are real and that the power they offer comes with a price that can't be calculated in currency or time. Some people will still choose to take the trials. That's inevitable. When they do, make sure they know what they're getting into. Kovach paused, and for a moment she looked very human. And please tell my family that I love them. Tell them that I think about them every day. Tell them that becoming what I am doesn't mean I stopped being their daughter, their sister, their friend. It just means I'm those things in a different way now, a way that lets me keep them safe." The recording ended. The conference was silent for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Peterson spoke. "So the Prometheus is gone. Our only real defense against galactic-level threats has left to chase worse threats in deep space. That's not ideal. But it's honest," Martinez said. "Captain Kovac and her crew were always explorers first. They protected us when we needed it, but they were never going to stay in one place playing permanent guardian." Chen looked at the tracking data, watching the Prometheus's signal fade. "So what do we do now? Do we accelerate the search for other precursor sites? Do we try to create more protectors?" "We do what Captain Kovac asked," Amara said firmly. "We publish everything. We let humanity make informed choices, and we prepare ourselves for the reality that some people will choose to take the trials, knowing full well what they might lose." Over the next week, Amara released Captain Kovac's complete logs to the public. The response was immediate and intense. People across human space read about the Prometheus's journey, about the trials that had transformed the crew, about the price of power and the weight of protection. Public opinion split sharply. Some people saw the Prometheus crew as heroes who had sacrificed everything to keep humanity safe. Others saw them as cautionary tales, warnings about the dangers of changing too much in pursuit of power. Religious groups debated whether the transformation was evolution or corruption. Philosophers argued about whether beings that changed so fundamentally could still be considered human. But through all the debate, one thing became clear. People understood the choice now. They knew what the trials demanded. And remarkably, thousands of people volunteered anyway. Amara found herself reviewing applications from potential expedition members, scientists who wanted to understand precursor technology, soldiers who wanted to protect humanity the way the Prometheus did, even ordinary people who felt called to become something more. She approved some applications and rejected others, trying to judge who understood the risks and who was chasing glory. It was an impossible task, and she knew it. But Captain Kovac had trusted her with this responsibility, and she would do her best. 3 months after the Prometheus's departure, the first approved expedition launched toward a precursor site that showed similar characteristics to the one Kovac's crew had found. The expedition was called Phoenix, a ship with 30 volunteers who had spent months preparing mentally and physically for what they might face. Amara watched the Phoenix depart from Station Nexus Prime, its engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the unknown. She wondered how many of those 30 people would return. She wondered what they would become if they did return. Ambassador Chen stood beside her at the observation window. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" Chen asked. "Sending people into situations that might destroy them or transform them beyond recognition." "I think we're doing the human thing," Amara replied. "We've always explored, always pushed boundaries, always reached for what's just beyond our grasp. The precursor trials are just the next frontier." "Even if it costs us our humanity?" Amara thought about Captain Kovac, about the sadness in her voice when she talked about what she had lost, and the certainty in her voice when she said she would make the same choice again. "Maybe," Amara said slowly, "maybe humanity isn't about what we are. Maybe it's about what we choose to do with whatever we become. Kovac is more powerful than any human who ever lived, but she's still human where it counts. She still protects. She still cares. She still loves her family, even if she can't hug them anymore. That's what matters." Chen nodded slowly. "I hope you're right, because we're about to find out what humanity becomes when it starts reaching for godhood." 6 more expeditions launched over the following months. Some headed toward precursor sites. Others went searching for different kinds of advancement, different paths to power. Humanity was scattering across the galaxy, chasing dreams and taking risks that previous generations would have considered insane. And deep in unexplored space, the Prometheus continued its mission. Captain Kovac and her crew moved through the dark places between stars, investigating threats that could destroy civilizations. Occasionally, they would send brief messages back to human space, status reports, warnings about regions to avoid. Once, a message that simply said, "Found something interesting. Will investigate and report." The Galactic Council watched humanity's transformation with mixed feelings. Some species admired the ambition, others feared it. The Cretharian Empire, now more moderate under new leadership, established diplomatic relations with humanity based on mutual respect rather than conquest. High Castellan Vexthor retired and became, surprisingly, an advisor to human military academies, teaching strategy and warning against the arrogance that had once defined his empire. Former High Castellan Vexthor sat in a classroom at the Mars Military Academy, facing 200 young human officers. He had been invited to speak about the Battle of New Horizon from the Cretharian perspective. "I commanded 500 of the Empire's finest ships," he told them. "I was confident. I was experienced. I had never lost a battle. And I watched all of that mean nothing against a single vessel that operated on principles I couldn't understand." He paused, looking at the young faces watching him. "Some of you will choose to take the precursor trials. Some of you will become like the Prometheus crew. If you do, remember this. Power without wisdom is just destruction with better weapons." Captain Kovac became incredibly powerful, but she remained wise enough to use that power only for protection. That restraint, that choice to guard rather than conquer, is what makes humanity dangerous in the best possible way. One of the students raised her hand. "Sir, do you think we're changing too fast? Reaching for too much?" Vexthor considered the question. "I think humanity is doing what successful species do. You're adapting. You're growing. You're not content to stay small and safe. My empire tried to expand through conquest. You're trying to expand through evolution. I don't know which approach will prove better in the long run, but I know which one I respect more." Back on Station Nexus Prime, Amara received a private message. It was from the Phoenix expedition. They had reached the precursor site and were beginning the trials. The message was brief. "We understand now. We understand what the trials demand. Some of us won't make it through. But for those who do, we'll be different. Better, we hope. Strong enough to stand beside the Prometheus if humanity needs us." Amara saved the message and added it to the growing archive of human transformation. She thought about Captain Kovac out there in the darkness, hunting monsters that the rest of humanity couldn't even imagine. She thought about the Phoenix crew beginning their own transformation. She thought about all the other humans who would make similar choices in the years and decades to come. Humanity was changing. Maybe humanity was always changing. But now the changes were deliberate, chosen, driven by the knowledge that the galaxy was vast and dangerous and full of opportunities for those brave enough to reach for them. Amara looked out at the stars and smiled. Captain Kovac had asked her to publish the truth, and she had. Now humanity knew what was possible. Now they understood the price and the reward. What they chose to do with that knowledge would define them for generations to come. And somewhere in deep space, the Prometheus detected another anomaly, another threat approaching human territory. Captain Kovac and her crew adjusted course, their impossible ship moving faster than light, faster than thought, racing to interpose themselves between humanity and danger. They had become monsters to fight monsters. They had given up their humanity to protect humanity. It was a paradox that would trouble philosophers for centuries. But for Kovac and her crew, it was simple. They had been given a choice between staying safe or becoming powerful, between protecting themselves or protecting everyone else. They had chosen to become the shield that humanity needed, and they would continue that mission until the stars burned out, or they found something in the darkness that even they couldn't defeat. The Prometheus sent one final message back to Earth before going silent again. We are still here. We are still watching. We are still human where it matters. And we will always come home when you call. In the command center of Earth Defense Force headquarters, Admiral Peterson read that message and felt something loosen in his chest. The Prometheus was out there. Phoenix and other expeditions were pursuing their own transformations. Humanity was spreading across the galaxy in forms both familiar and strange, but the core remained, the willingness to sacrifice for others, the drive to protect the weak, the choice to use power responsibly rather than recklessly. These were the things that made humanity what it was, regardless of what form humans took. "We're going to be okay," Peterson said to nobody in particular. And maybe, just maybe, he was right. The galaxy had learned that humanity was more than it appeared. More dangerous, yes, but also more capable of growth, more willing to pay the price for power, and more determined to use that power for protection rather than conquest. It was a lesson that would echo across the stars for generations to come. And it all started with a ship that had been lost for 2 centuries, a crew that gave up everything to become something more, and a species that looked at the impossible and decided to reach for it anyway. This was humanity. This was what they did. They explored. They evolved. They protected their own. And they never ever stopped reaching for the stars.